Jake had dreamed of this day for years. A new house, a fresh start, a peaceful corner to call his own. Sunnyvale Estates, a name that sounded like a sweet promise straight out of a real estate brochure, was the perfect destination. This suburban neighborhood wore an elegant look, with lush green lawns trimmed to perfection, rows of straight oak trees, and houses painted in matching cream tones, like they'd stepped out of a painting. Jake, suitcase in hand and heart full of hope, stepped onto the porch of his new home at 17 Maple Lane. He set down two tiny, cute planters, little discount store cacti, right by the front door, smiling to himself. This is my place now. But that peaceful dream shattered faster than a passing breeze before the door even closed. Just a few hours later, as Jake was fumbling with unpacking boxes in the living room, a sharp, dry knock echoed from the front door. He frowned, wiped the sweat off his forehead, and opened it. No hello, no friendly smile. Instead, a crisp white sheet of paper with a glaring red border was taped to the door with a cheap strip of adhesive. Bold letters at the top hit him like a slap. HOAVIOLATIONNOTICE. Jake grabbed the paper, his hand trembling slightly from surprise, and skimmed it. The resident at 17 Maple Lane has violated community rules by placing unapproved items, 2 planters, on the porch. Remove them within 24 hours or face a $50 daily fine. Planters? These tiny little things are a violation? Jake muttered, turning to glance at the 2 innocent green culprits sitting quietly on the porch. He let out a chuckle, thinking it must be some neighbor's prank to welcome the new guy. But that laugh died fast when a figure emerged from across the street, striding over like a general marching into battle. That was Karen, or as Jake later dubbed her, the self-proclaimed Queen of Sunnyvale Estates. She stood there, barely over 5 feet 2 inches, but with an aura that towered over everything. Her over-bleached blonde hair framed a face caked with makeup, her narrowed eyes scanning Jake like he was dust on her shoe. A garish pink tracksuit hugged her frame, and she clutched a clipboard stuffed with HOA flyers like it was a sword of justice. Karen crossed her arms, tilted her chin up, and her shrill voice sliced through the air. "You're the new guy, right? Those cheap planters need to disappear right now. They don't meet this neighborhood's aesthetic standards." Jake blinked, his mind spinning like he'd been tossed into a bad play. "Sorry, what? This is my porch. What's wrong with these little pots?" He tried to keep his tone calm, pointing at the tiny cacti as if defending them. Karen smirked, a half-smile dripping with arrogance. "Funny guy. You think you can just move in and do whatever you want? Sunnyvale Estates has rules, and I'm the one who makes sure they're followed. Those pots, ugly, out of place, not approved by the board. And by the way, this house isn't either. Did the old owner even report the sale to the HOA?" She tapped her fingers on the clipboard, her eyes glinting like she'd just caught a juicy prize. Jake froze, his mouth opening then closing, unsure whether to laugh or snap. "You mean I need permission to live in my own house?" he asked, his voice starting to edge with a growl. But then, through Karen's smug glare, he caught something interesting. She thought he was a renter, just some nobody tenant with no real say, forced to bow to the Queen's commands. Jake pressed his lips together, fighting back a grin that was itching to break free. Oh, this was gonna be good. "Listen, Karen, right?" Jake crossed his arms, tilting his head at her. "I don't think the owner needs to check with you for me to be here. And these pots, they're not hurting anyone. So why the big deal? Karen flipped her hair, stepping closer. So close, Jake caught a whiff of her cheap perfume hitting his face. You don't get it. This is a classy neighborhood, not some dumpy rental you're used to. If the owner didn't report a lease, I'll start the eviction process. We don't tolerate community wreckers here. Her voice shot up, loaded with menace, like she was sentencing a dangerous criminal. Jake burst out laughing, couldn't hold it in anymore. The sound rang out across the quiet streets of Sunnyvale Estates, making Karen flinch, her powdered cheeks flushing red with anger. Evict me? For real? You can't be serious? He shook his head, hands sliding into his pockets, a playful spark in his eyes. Look, Karen, I'm not a renter. I bought this house, cash on the table, papers signed, full-on owner. The air went dead silent. Karen stood there like a statue, eyes wide, mouth twitching but wordless. Her face went from red to ghostly white, like someone had dumped ice water on her in the dead of winter. You bought it? Her voice cracked, shaky with shock. Then, like a bad actor scrambling to save the scene, Karen forced a smile, her lips trembling. Oh, well, welcome to the neighborhood then. I'm the HOA President, so if you need anything, just come to me. She spun around, hurrying off, but Jake could still hear her muttering under her breath as she went. He shut the door, leaning against it, rubbing his chin. Welcome, my ass, Jake grumbled, his eyes glinting with a bad feeling. Karen wasn't the type to back down easy, and he knew this drama was just getting started. Those two little planters on the porch had somehow become the spark for a war he never asked for. But if Karen wanted to play, Jake was game. She didn't know who he was yet. Escalation. Karen's relentless attacks. Jake figured that first dramatic day with Karen would be the end of it. He'd proven he was the homeowner, not some pushover renter she could boss around. But oh no, Karen wasn't the type to quit after a slap in the face. She was like a Category 10 storm. Quiet for a moment to build strength, then back with double the destruction. Just 2 days after that first clash, Jake opened his mailbox and found a crisp, white envelope with that familiar red border, the HOA's trademark. This time, the scrawled words practically screamed at him. Violation, backyard. Light too bright, causing light, pollution in the community. Change it within 48 hours, or face a $75 fine. Jake stood there, paper in hand, glancing at his backyard. The wall-mounted lamp, an energy-saving LED he'd bought to light the path, gave off a soft golden glow, nothing like the blinding stage lights Karen claimed. Light pollution? Seriously? He muttered, tossing the paper onto the kitchen table with a fed-up sigh. But that was just the opening shot. The next morning, another envelope showed up, this time taped right to the garage door like a public declaration of war. Inside, violation. 2 bikes left in open garage, ruining the neighborhood's image. $25 daily fine per bike. Jake let out a dry laugh, but inside he was starting to heat up. 2 bikes, one his, the other left by the paperboy last week, sat neatly in the garage corner, invisible unless you were standing right there. By day 3, Karen crossed every line of absurdity. Another notice, this time shoved through the front door slot, handwritten in shaky, furious scrawl. Violation. Window curtains left open on the evening of March 6th, exposing a messy living space, damaging community aesthetics. Jake read it, his hand crumpling the paper. He remembered that night. Yeah, He forgot to close the curtains while watching football, but messy? A sofa, a pizza box, and a couple of beers? That's a national crime in Karen's eyes. Anger started simmering in Jake's chest. He stepped onto the porch, clutching the 3 notices like evidence in a crazy case. Across the street, Karen stood there, her cold eyes hidden behind cheap sunglasses, lips pursed like she was savoring some sick joy from tormenting him. She said nothing, just crossed her arms and tilted her chin up like a queen overseeing her domain. Jake got it then. She couldn't kick him out, so she'd chosen this, turning him into a public enemy, using petty rules to choke out every bit of peace he had. "She's gone nuts," Tom, the cheerful neighbor from 19, shouted from his yard. Tom stood there, soda can in hand, grinning like he was watching a B-grade horror flick. "Karen's flipping out like a movie villain, Jake. Last night, I saw her creeping around with a flashlight, probably checking if your curtains were closed." Tom cracked up, but Jake wasn't laughing anymore. He stormed back inside, dumped the notices on the table, hands on hips, mind racing. "All right, Karen," he said to himself, voice dropping low and dangerous. "You want to play? Let's play." From annoyed, Jake now felt a fire ignite inside. Not blind rage, but a sharp, determined resolve. He flipped open his laptop, dug through his house paperwork, scanning every line of the HOA rules Karen kept yapping about. If she thought these notices would make him beg or pack up, she was dead wrong. Jake wasn't some pushover. He remembered signing the deal at the lawyer's office, the broker's grin, as he said, "You're not just buying a house, Jake. You're buying a little empire in Sunnyvale Estates." Back then, he'd brushed it off with a laugh, but now those words echoed in his head, sharp as a blade. The next morning, another notice appeared, this time about uneven grass in the front yard, even though Jake had just hired a guy to mow it yesterday. He held the paper, eyes flashing with resolve. "You want a war, Karen? Fine." He stepped outside, staring straight at her house, that white-painted place with the HOA President sign hanging proudly out front. She was watering plants, but her sneaky glances flicked toward Jake, waiting for a reaction. He smiled, not a friendly one, but a silent challenge. He turned back inside, slamming the door, muttering to himself, "You don't know who I am yet, Karen, but you will." Tom yelled over again, "Watch out, Jake!" When Karen flips, it's full-on horror movie mode. Jake didn't reply, but in his head, a plan was taking shape. Karen thought she was the predator, but she had no clue she'd just poked a much bigger beast. This wasn't about planters or curtains anymore. This was a fight for control of Sunnyvale Estates, and Jake had no intention of losing. Confrontation at the HOA meeting. The day finally came. After Karen's barrage of ridiculous violation notices, Jake got an official HOA letter. Not some slip shoved under the door, but a thick envelope with a red stamp, summoning him to an emergency meeting at the Sunnyvale Estates community office. The note was short but dripping with threat. The resident at 17 Maple Lane is accused of ruining the neighborhood's beauty and order. Attendance required to explain. Jake read it, no anger this time. He smiled, the smile of a guy who knew he was about to land a knockout punch. Karen had dug her own grave, and now he'd shove her into it. That afternoon, Jake walked into the meeting room, a small wood-paneled space with an old paint smell lingering, a long table smack in the middle. Karen was already there, perched at the head, like a queen on her throne. She wore a loud red blazer, hair piled high, gripping a fat stack of papers like it was her ultimate weapon. Next to her sat Steve, the HOA Vice President, a scruffy middle-aged guy with tired eyes, looking like he'd been dragged out of a nap. 3 other board members sat scattered around, flipping through papers, clearly not thrilled about the show ahead. Jake pulled out a chair across from Karen, hands in pockets, gaze calm, but razor sharp. Karen didn't waste a second. She shot up, slamming her hand on the table, like a judge starting a trial. "Today," her voice screeched, high and shrill, "we're here to address a serious issue with the resident at 17 Maple Lane, Jake. He's been wrecking Sunnyvale Estates' beauty, ignoring every rule." She flipped through her stack, holding up a pile of color-printed photos, like crime scene evidence. Here, a dead leaf on his front yard, obvious neglect. And this, 2 temporary mailboxes stacked on his porch, like a dump. Worst of all, 3 FedEx deliveries in a week, cluttering up his doorstep. The room went dead quiet. Steve raised an eyebrow, rubbing his forehead like he was fighting a laugh. One board member coughed, covering their mouth. Jake sat still, arms crossed, watching Karen's performance with a mix of disbelief and disdain. "A dead leaf?" he muttered, loud enough for everyone to hear. "You took pictures of a leaf for evidence? And those 3 FedEx packages, that's toilet paper I ordered online. How am I supposed to live without it?" Karen's face flushed, but she didn't stop. She jabbed a finger at Jake, voice quivering with fury. "Don't interrupt me. This isn't a joke. You're dragging down property values, messy house, constant deliveries, no respect for the community. I motion to fine him $200 and demand immediate fixes." She sat back, arms crossed, eyes gleaming like she'd just scored the winning point. But then it was Jake's turn. He stood, slowly pulling a thin folder from his jacket, not bulky like Karen's, but enough to shift the room's vibe. "You done, Karen?" he asked, voice low but cutting like a knife. "Because if you are, I've got some stuff to share with the board." He set the folder on the table, locking eyes with Karen, making her freeze, hands gripping the edge. "First off," Jake started, flipping to the first page, "you say I'm ruining Sunnyvale Estates' beauty? Let's talk about you. HOA rules say trash cans can't sit out more than 12 hours after pickup. Here's a photo I took yesterday morning. Your bin's still out front, overflowing with soda cans and stinking bags." He slid the picture across, forcing Steve to look up. Karen opened her mouth to argue, but Jake raised a hand to stop her. "Not done yet. Rules say cars stay in the garage or driveway. But here, 3 times this week, your car's parked smack on the sidewalk, blocking the path. And the best part?" He turned to the last page, voice dropping with menace. "That wooden fence in your backyard, over 6 feet, no building permit. Who's really wrecking the neighborhood, Karen?" The room exploded in silence. Steve grabbed the trash can photo, frowning at Karen. A board member whispered, "That fence really doesn't have a permit." Karen went pale, hands shaking on the table. That's irrelevant," she yelled, her voice breaking. "I'm the HOA president. I oversee things. He's the problem." Jake smiled, sitting back, tapping the table. "Oversee how? When you break more rules than me? A leaf and 3 FedEx boxes ruin nothing. You're making yourself a joke, Karen." He leaned back, eyes blazing with confidence. He knew he had the upper hand, and Karen felt it too. Steve sighed, folding Karen's papers like he was done with the farce. "Enough, Karen," he said, voice weary. "You can't keep making up violations to punish people while you're breaking half the rules. This ends here." The board members nodded, clearly fed up with Karen's antics to the core. But Karen wouldn't give up. She jumped up, pointing at Jake, face red like she'd blow. "You'll regret defending him. I'll prove he doesn't belong here." She stormed out, leaving behind Jake's smirk and the board's collective sigh of relief. Jake grinned to himself. "Go ahead and try, Karen. You don't know me yet." Climax: Karen's fake eviction notice. After that tense HOA meeting, Jake thought Karen might back off, lick her wounds, and plot something else. But nope, she wasn't the type to stop when cornered. She was like a wounded wild animal, getting crazier, the more she smelled blood. A few days later, on a quiet Saturday morning, Jake stepped out to grab the paper and found a thick envelope jammed in his mailbox. Not the usual red-bordered violation slip. This was an official-looking letter on HOA letterhead, stamped with glossy black ink, serious as a court order. Jake frowned, tore it open, and bam, the words hit him like a punch. Eviction notice. Resident at 17 Maple Lane must vacate Sunnyvale Estates within 15 days for continuously disrupting the community. Jake stood frozen in his front yard, letter in hand, the morning breeze making the paper flutter like it was mocking him. The details below were even wilder. Your ongoing violations have caused severe harm to the harmony and property values of the neighborhood. The HOA demands you leave immediately or face legal action. Signed at the bottom was Karen, her sloppy signature oozing arrogance, with HOA President in bold like a badge of ultimate power. Jake read it, no anger, no panic. Instead, he laughed, a big, loud laugh that echoed through Sunnyvale Estates' stillness. It wasn't fear. It was the sheer absurdity of it all. "Evict me? In 15 days? From my own house?" he muttered, folding the paper, eyes glinting with danger. He glanced at Karen's house, that white-painted place with the HOA President sign still hanging proud. Through the window, he saw her shadow pacing, phone in hand, grinning like she'd just won a chess match. Karen was clearly basking in this victory, thinking she'd landed the final blow to make Jake beg. But Jake wasn't the type to freak out over cheap tricks. He walked inside, set the letter on the kitchen table, and grabbed his phone to call his lawyer, a guy named Mike who'd handled his house deal. "Mike, check this out for me," Jake said, snapping a photo of the letter and texting it over. 10 minutes later, Mike called back, laughing through the speaker. "What the hell is this, Jake? It's fake. The HOA can't evict anyone from their own property. They can fine you or sue. But this? It's got no legal weight. Karen made it up and slapped a stamp on it for show." Jake nodded, not surprised. He'd suspected it from the start. Karen wasn't smart enough to pull this off legally. "So what's next?" he asked, tapping the table, mind already churning. Mike laughed harder. "Let her think she's won for now. Then hit back. This is your chance to teach her a lesson she won't forget." Jake grinned, hung up, and sank into the sofa, letter in hand, staring off. He decided to do nothing yet. Let Karen enjoy her little fantasy win for a few days. Let her strut around, brag to the neighbors, and dig herself deeper. Next morning, Jake saw Karen out in her yard, coffee mug in hand, beaming like she'd hit the jackpot. She even waved at him, a fake, condescending wave, like saying, "Better start packing, kid." Jake gave her a faint smile back, hands in pockets, eyes cool but icy. He heard Tom yell from next door, Watch out, Jake. She's telling everyone you're getting booted. Jake shrugged, went inside, and whispered to himself, let her dream. Good dreams don't last long. Inside, Jake felt no worry. He was calm as a lake before a storm, but underneath, a plan was brewing. He opened his laptop, checked his ownership papers, not just 17 Maple Lane, but 15 other houses in Sunnyvale Estates. Karen thought she was the hunter, but she didn't know she'd poked a shark. This eviction notice wasn't her kill shot. It was her biggest mistake, a one-way ticket to her downfall. Jake smirked, folded the letter, and tucked it in a drawer. 15 days, huh? He muttered. You won't even get 15 minutes, Karen. Out there, Karen was still giddy, pacing her yard, humming softly, arms swinging like she was celebrating. She thought she'd won, that Jake would pack up, and the neighborhood would be hers to rule again. But she didn't know. Inside 17 Maple Lane, Jake was waiting, calm as a patient predator. She'd just shot herself in the foot, and Jake would pull the trigger on her final fall. Conclusion: Karen toppled. The emergency meeting came just 3 days after that fake eviction notice. Karen, still blind in her victory delusion, strutted into the meeting room with unmatched arrogance. She wore a loud green blazer, hair piled high like she was ready for TV, clutching a thick stack of papers like her last weapon. Jake walked in after, cool as a breeze, but his eyes burned with the confidence of a man holding all the cards. The small Sunnyvale Estates meeting room was packed again. Steve in the middle, board members watching quietly, the air heavy like before a storm. Karen kicked things off, voice dripping with triumph. Today, we'll officially confirm Jake's eviction from the neighborhood. He got the notice. 15 days to get out. I did everything by the book. She shot Jake a glance, her smirk saying, "You're done, kid." But Jake didn't bite. He just set a folder on the table, opened it slow, and said, "Karen, you finished? 'Cause I've got some fun stuff to share." He flipped to the first page, voice low but sharp. "First, that eviction notice of yours is fake. My lawyer confirmed it. The HOA can't kick anyone out of their own house. You made it up, stamped it. Thought I'd run scared." Karen went pale, but Jake kept going. He turned the next page. "More importantly, I own 15 houses in Sunnyvale Estates, over 50% of the neighborhood. Per the rules, my voting power outranks yours. So now I'm calling for a no-confidence vote to strip you of the HOA President gig, effective immediately." The room blew up in silence. Steve's jaw dropped, his pen clattering to the table. Karen stood like a statue, eyes huge, mouth moving but silent. "You... what?" she stammered, voice breaking. Jake smiled, leaning back. "You heard me. I'm not just a resident. I'm the big boss here. And you just messed with the wrong guy, Karen." The vote happened right then. One hand went up, then two. Then the whole board agreed. Karen was out in under 5 minutes. She screamed, pointing at Jake, "You'll regret this. I'll sue you all." But no one listened. Steve sighed, saying, "It's over, Karen. Go home." She bolted from the room, leaving behind her desperate yells and Jake's smug grin. 2 weeks later, a for sale sign popped up in front of Karen's house, the fortress of her old power. Tom texted Jake a pic with the caption, "Game over, bro." Jake stood on his porch, coffee in hand, eyeing the sign with a satisfied smile. Karen was done, losing everything: reputation, control, her home. Sunnyvale Estates breathed easy, like waking from a nightmare. And Jake? He savored the win, knowing he'd not only saved his place, but freed the whole neighborhood from the self-proclaimed queen's crazy reign. Hey, can you believe it? After that emergency meeting, Jake flipped the script. Karen walked in all cocky, thinking she'd kick Jake out in 15 days. But Jake, man, this guy's cool as ice, stood up, pulled out papers proving he owns 15 houses in Sunnyvale Estates, over half the damn place. By the rules, his vote outweighs Karen's. So he drops the bomb. I'm calling a vote to ditch this president chick right now. The board raised hands like lightning, and Karen was toast in less than 5 minutes. She screamed like the house was on fire. I'll sue you all. But no one cared. 2 weeks later, a for sale signs up at her place. Tom snaps a pic for Jake. Movie's over, man. Jake's out on his porch, smirking like, told you so. Real talk, this ain't just fun drama. It's got law stuff too. HOAs can set rules, like even lawns or matching paint, but they can't cross federal or state laws. Like Jake's case, Karen's fake eviction notice, totally illegal. Property laws protect Jake. HOAs can't boot you from your own house, just fine you or sue. Even fines gotta be fair, not break stuff like the ADA, Americans with Disabilities Act, or basic homeowner rights. Karen thought she was hot stuff, but the law shut her down fast. What's the takeaway? First, community unity's huge. If everyone hated Karen but stayed quiet, she'd still rule. Second, know your rights. Don't let bullies push you around blind. Jake won because he knew the game, didn't just take it. Last, don't let Karens run wild. Justice needs a voice. How do you handle this? Keep proof, like Jake saved those notices and snapped Karen's trash pics. Call a lawyer quick, like Jake's guy Mike, to check what's legit or fake. Or if you're shy, team up with neighbors. Strength in numbers, right? Karen lost because the whole place turned on her. Jake alone would have had it rough. There you go. Story's done. Jake wins, Karen's out, neighborhood's free. If you like this video and want me to keep cranking out drama like this, drop a 1 in the comments. I read 'em all. Promise.